So I'm not going to probe too much, but on Kong versus Godzilla, or is it Godzilla versus Kong?
Godzilla versus Kong.
Godzilla versus
the original is King Kong versus Godzilla, so I guess we're splitting it up,
But obviously that's going to be VFX. Is it Margie mocap? Is that how you do it, or are you going to get a really big guy in a really big suit? I mean,
I think I'll probably follow in the footsteps of what they're doing with Godzilla 2 and in the last two films. Obviously, I think especially Kong will probably evolve him just a bit, because he's been on Skull Island for quite some time since the 1970s. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how he looks in this movie, and I have some pretty cool ideas of what I want to do with him. But yeah, the process is interesting. I'm just now getting into it because we just literally finished Death Note about a couple days ago, and so I've had a couple overlap meetings where I've met with the writer and stuff, and we've had some preliminary discussions based on the outline that's written for it right now and kind of the directions to take it. And concurrently, while we're writing the script, I'll be working on previs, animatics for the film. So we'll be kind of experimenting on what a fight between, for instance, Godzilla and Kong looks like in the movie while we're writing the script, and hopefully influencing some of the directions that we go with the script, which will be cool. I look forward to that process.
So you're talking to Michael Dougherty, or in
just a little bit.
Yeah.
I've had a little bit of communication with him. He mentioned that he wanted me to, if I was going to be in Atlanta while they were shooting, that he wanted me to have a cameo as like a scientist or something like that. I don't know if I'd have to shave my facial hair for that.
Scientists are cool, man. Scientists,
yeah, exactly. I could be like
beards.
the hippie scientist in the background.
It's fine. How's your clipboard technique?
Yeah.
Are you good at writing stuff down?
Yeah, if I can just get little glasses, I can push down the bottom of my nose, and so I've talked with him. I actually had dinner with Jordan,
cool.
who directed, Kong, and he gave me kind of a rundown of some of the things to expect, and and that was enlightening, and because Jordan's coming from a very similar background to I am. In a lot of ways, I have, I'm coming off of a lot more kind of individual movie experience than he had. So at least I have some idea of what he's talking about. But whenever you're working on a movie of this size, it's just it's you're on a whole different level, and it's good to know kind of what to expect there.
That's the thing. Even at this early stage, you haven't really technically gone to prep, I guess, on the movie. Are you thinking about the human element of this movie when you have two titans like this, the size of the set pieces and?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always thinking about the perspective of it, because each film kind of takes a different route, in terms of the way you're experiencing, the monsters and things. So, but the first thing I did once I even started talking to Legendary about the potential of doing this film, is I went back and I watched every single Godzilla movie, and most of the Kong films, and it was one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had in many years. I hadn't seen a lot of the Godzilla films since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool to be able to re-experience that and remember that, that the emotional stakes you have in these monsters is very real, especially when you're a kid. And that's one thing that I want to make sure that, that I'm kind of injecting into it. Not just the human story, because, that's going to be obviously a main focus and everything. Yeah. But, the main thing I really want to inject into it is kind of bring it back to that level where you're really empathizing with the monsters on a different level.
Fantastic. And we've when the project was first announced years ago, before you got involved on the Emperor podcast, we were going, how is that going to work? Godzilla is much bigger than Kong. He's going to use him as a toothpick. What's going to happen? But you're going to take care of that, right? Kong's bigger already. They've made him bigger.
He's bigger definitely now, and they do imply in the last film that he's still growing.
He's a bairn. He's a baby.
He's so there's a lot of stuff to figure out there, and that's why we're going to be doing previs and stuff concurrently with the script, because it really is important to look at those characters and the way they interact with each other, and understand that from the get-go.
Well, that would be interesting. What's interesting as well is that Godzilla versus Kong is really the first out-and-out non-horror that you will have been involved with.
That's true.
I mean, as a huge horror
It'll also
fan.
be the first, PG-13 movie I've done.
Oh, it's PG-13. Oh, come on, Adam.
Well, I assume it will be. I doubt that they'll let me go hard R on that one.
You never know. Deadpool. Look at Deadpool. That's the Kingsman. These are R-rated films. They've got people being sliced in two and all
Exactly.
sorts.
Well, they've just got the precedent of all those films being PG-13, so I'm sure I'll get kind of shoehorned into that, even though we haven't discussed that yet. But it'll be interesting, kind of going at it that way. But I mean, monster movies are really, they need to be always on the edge of almost being R, but ultimately I think, you want it to be able to appeal to kids too, And when I say that, I mean, coming from a guy who, whenever I was a kid, my favorite movie was like, Aliens and, Terminator 2 and stuff like that.
You want the thrill of being able to sneak into the movie theater or the cinema,
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're a kid, you don't want to watch kiddie movies necessarily, you know? I mean, like, but even when you're watching a kid, like you feel like for instance, like the Godzilla films, this is what I kind of relearned as I was rewatching all those movies is that when you're a kid and you're watching those, they feel like adult movies to you. You know, they feel very serious and you take them very seriously. And it's because the movies have this kind of, their own kind of vibe where they are, really taking, the monsters seriously. I mean, some of the Godzilla movies, they don't. I mean, some of them are kind of misses, but, a lot of them, there's almost on almost every Godzilla movie, there's something great about it, even the really bad ones. We made a movie that's based on this source material that people feel extremely passionate about. Believe me, I know.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure you'll hear plenty of it in the next few weeks.
Oh, I hear plenty of it, since the day I got attached to this.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, what is that like to be so close, to have to hear that about something that you're spending a lot of time on, that you're developing and working hard on?
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, for a while I thought, okay, is this just like the State of the Union for all projects? Because like Blair Witch immediately had like crazy reactions from people. Similarly, this one, like from the day I got attached to it, I had a lot of these, hardcore fans coming at me, kind of, saying I'd ruin Death Note and this and that. And you're just like, well, we haven't actually done anything yet. I mean, this is before casting or anything. So, there's just a passionate fan base world, but I think it's a good thing to have because, I get it too. But it's not like that for every project because, like, for instance, when I got hired on Godzilla versus Kong, I thought, okay, well, here it comes, cue all the people telling me that I'm about to ruin, their favorite monster films. But that one was completely opposite. It was like the fan base welcomed me with open arms immediately. But I think what's really going on here is I think the anime fans especially feel like they've been really let down so many times by features and they, and so like instead of starting in a place where they're skeptically optimistic, they just immediately start from like, this is going to be Dragon Ball Evolution and you're going to hurt us again. And so we're just not even going to let it happen. I get where they're coming from, and and I can't deny that we've made a movie that's very different from the source material. But that's also by design because ultimately, if we had tried to do something that was exactly the same, it would have just been a jumbled mess. It would have been trying to put too much into one film, stuff that's like not designed to be in a movie or in a cinematic kind of pace or anything like that. So, I think we made the best version that we could. And honestly, the creators love it, like they're on board with all the changes we made. We were very forthright in terms of every script that we would send to them and cuts of the film. And they really like that it's different, and that it's doing something new. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, there's not much to say about Godzilla versus Kong right now that I could actually say publicly. I mean, like we're in the treatment phase right now. It's about to go to script. The first time I met with Legendary, they took me into a room and, they had the script for Godzilla 2 and they had a really great lookbook, which was incredible. It was like these big full-scale paintings, so you could really read the screenplay and flip through the lookbook and, you see all the monsters there and all that stuff. And, so you didn't really even have to use your imagination. You knew what it was, kind of from the get-go. And that was really helpful. And again, that was with my assistant and I, Gary. Like we went in there and we just read that script for like 7 hours. I mean, like because that was like a big decision point. It was like, okay, if we're really going to do this, which it would be amazing to do this, but we want to make sure that like we really understand what this movie is, and then look at this outline and say like, is this really something that we can do? And it totally was. Like there was like, I won't say what it is now, but there was like one aspect to Godzilla versus Kong, which I was 100% going into it. I was like, this movie has to have this set piece in it, and that's what I want to do. And so I was reading Godzilla 2, and I was really nervous, like, are they going to have this set piece in here? They didn't. And then I got to the outline, and sure enough, they had the perfect setup for the set piece in Godzilla versus Kong, and that's when I knew. It was like, okay, this is,
Nice.